of the week. At least it's the middle of the work week, right? Well, I'm just going to get on with it, and then we can have a little bit of a, how would you say, discussion, but it will be a one-sided discussion because it would just be me doing it. Celebrates infinite diversity. The first quote's from Audre Lorde, who was an American writer, poet, philosopher, let me see, civil rights activist, who lived for a good part of the 20th century. She says, it's not our differences that divide us. It's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. In other words, it's how we respond to the difference. Ernest Holmes and Can We Talk to God? Which is a good book, actually. It's not a big book, it's a probably small book, but it's a good book. On page 79, paragraph 2, he says, I believe the spirit is in the wind and the wave, and manifests its presence throughout all of nature, but most completely through our own minds and our own hearts. It proclaims our livingness and our lovingness. There's Holmes. And there's something that takes me back to something I really used to love watching. Many people, even those unfamiliar with Star Trek, Star Wars, science fantasy, science fiction, that's me. Anyway, most people familiar with, even those unfamiliar with Star Trek, are familiar with the Vulcan phrase, Mr. Spock, remember, live long and prosper. But what about the acronym IDIC? Like this is the one he invented, but it's pretty good actually. The Vulcan phrase, Kol Utshan, translates as infinite diversity in infinite combinations, IDIC. This phrase is a core principle of the Vulcan culture, to celebrate the vastness of the universe and all its diverse forms. I'm not quite sure where the next bit comes from, but I take it at face value. It's almost laughable that many people criticize the more recent, quote, Star Trek shows, calling them too woke. Perhaps these people have never watched the original show or understand the vision of its creator, Gene Roddenberry. If they had, they would have seen what diversity, equity, and inclusion could look like in our lifetime. While the TV show was fictional, the vision was as aspirational as the vision of Centers for Spiritual Living, which is a world that works for everyone. The vision of this world can only become a realized experience when we start to actualize God, the divine, the all, more than we theorize about God. Our vision can only be realized when we honor and celebrate our differences in what? In language, in culture, in customs, in skin colors, in spiritual beliefs, in ethnicities, gender expressions, physical and cognitive expressions, and more. There's only one divine essence, and it is individualizing itself as all there is. Why wouldn't we honor that? How are you being invited to recognize and actualize IDIC? It's taking you back. It's infinite diversity in infinite combinations. And how are you going to recognize it in how long you live and relate with the divinity of everyone and everything? Well, the message is pretty clear, but I'll tell you this. I first got introduced to science fiction when I was a kid. I mean, when I was like, I forget, I was pretty young anyway. And it's true that in a lot of those books, they were kind of like Star Trek on steroids in a way, about the different kinds of people, and people would look like anything you can imagine. They'd look like humans, they'd look like dinosaurs, they'd look like elves, they'd look like elephants. And in a lot of these books, this is what it actually exemplified, and you would see, in your mind's eye, what was going on there in all of these interactions. So I'm not really 100% sure how to add to this, really, because look, you either get it or you don't get it. You either recognize that diversity is wonderful or you don't. And I think it's not fair for me to preach to people who don't see the equality in races, don't see the equality in nations, people in nations, nationality, or religion, or anything, because I don't know how they were brought up. I don't know their background, but I do know this, that in expressing itself, New Thought in general nowadays, and Science of Man in particular, and always has been, acceptance of anybody, irrespective of how they look, how they sound, how they feel, what their religion is, what their gender biases are, anything. And if that is woke, then I guess we're woke. But the ones of you who watch this on a fairly regular basis know that woke, in its original meaning, meant nothing like it's being used today, which is really saying you're way off, too far off on the left of the spectrum. No, it was just bringing people's attentions and awareness to what was going on, especially in the Black communities, within themselves. So I don't know what else to say. It's me, it's just all about, first of all, accepting yourself for who and what you are. So going beyond what Reverend Raymont's saying here, sometimes the hardest person to accept is ourself, and then the next hardest people to accept are those closest to us. And that is irrespective of getting into any differences about religion, politics, gender, race, etc. So the message that comes across to me is I've got to work on myself to accept myself. And after I've done that, then I can start, if I need to, working on accepting everybody else. So once again, I think this is a message of self-care. Begin with yourself, and then when you've got that strong foundation, you can start to be concerned about how you interact with everybody else. And I'll say one final thing. In both of the Toastmasters clubs to which I belong, the representation of people from around the globe is really amazing. In the smaller club that meets on Thursday, there are people from 5 continents: North America, South America, Africa, Europe, and Asia. And in the one that meets on Friday mornings, the bigger club, there are all of those 5 plus Australia, New Zealand. So, and you've got lots of expressions of religion, of race, of political affiliations. You got the whole spectrum in there, and yet we work together as Toastmasters and accept each other. So that is a living example of how this thing can actually work in practice. Let me see. I split his affirmation in 2, actually. I consciously celebrate the infinite as it expresses itself in infinite forms. I consciously celebrate the infinite as it expresses itself in infinite forms. And then I cut out the and I said, the more I celebrate and honor, the more my presence heals any forms of separation. The more I celebrate and honor, the more my presence heals any forms of separation. So there you are. I didn't get a chance to watch Danielle Mercadal, one of our religious science practitioners, with her midday meditation, but I do notice that whenever you miss anything here, go to Creative Life Spiritual Center's Facebook page or YouTube, and you can generally watch recordings of pretty well anything that happens at Creative Life. And I realize that this is coming through my Facebook page, Creative Life Facebook page, Prosperity Living's Facebook page. It'll be coming through Instagram, Blue Sky, Mastodon, Threads, Tumblr, and something else that I forget right now. So wherever you see it, I hope you're having a great day. And my knowingness is that you are loved. And I claimed it. Everyone is love. Everyone is an expression of love. And that expression begins to show itself in how we humans treat one another. So it is. So namaste.